Hello, friends. Today, in this episode, we're going to do something very different. A friend of mine reached out, asked me a question. He's like, well, if you were to, it was basically thinking how we can think about betting on things like roulette wheels, whether or not there's consecutive red and black results. And so we wrote an algorithm the other day. I've got it in Ruby over here, and I'm going to actually write it today in this video. It's going to be kind of a long video in which I might have not know what to do and have to look things up. This is just going to be like coding something that's quite simple from scratch using a existing Ruby program. But you don't need an existing Ruby program, but we're going to just write this in all JavaScript. And so at the end of it, we should be able to visit the page, type in a number and hit render. And we'll basically say the number is 5. We'll be able to say how many consecutive results. So if it's a 50-50 chance, how many consecutive times does it show up red, 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 black, 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 black? And you can see if I run it in Ruby over here, this would be a result where we ran it 5 times because we have the roulette rule running 5 times here. And then in this one, we actually got black, red, black, red, black. And so the largest, most consecutive one was a single roll of black. If we were to run it again, you'll see we've got 3 as the most consecutive roll, and the black is the result. And here we've got black, black, black. That's the 3. And then so that's just how this works. Here we got red, black again. And then here we have 2 in a row in which it comes out to black, even though it ran twice 2 times. And then red, red, red here, and then black, black. So the largest consecutive roll was 3, and it was red. And so what we're going to do is write that in JavaScript. In this tutorial, I'm going to use a lot of command line tools to move around because I want the tutorial to be able to work for everyone, and I want it to be kind of really core fundamental programming. So if you type in ls, you can list what's going on. If you type pwd, you can see what directory in. You can see right now I'm in the directory of desktop. And so what I want to do, index.html, this shouldn't be there. I should have deleted that before I started. So I just press command delete to delete it from the desktop. We were on the desktop, we just deleted index, so now and what I'm going to do is create a directory. So I'm going to say make dir, and then the directory is going to be consecutive finder. That's what we're going to call this program for now. And for the directory, you don't put a something. So now if we do ls, we can see we're in consecutive finder. I'm going to change directories into the consecutive finder. If I ls, there's nothing here. And so what I want to do now is I want to make a index.html file. We're going to do this all in HTML. So I'm going to say touch index.html. And now you see if I list that, we have the index.html file. This is an empty file. So I'm going to say open, and then in there I'm going to choose my application, which is Google Chrome. And I'm going to open the index file. Okay, so here we have a blank HTML file, which is kind of useless for our purposes right now. So what I want to do now is I want to open the index.html file, but I want to do it in Atom, my text editor. Cool, and then if we were to add an HTML tag here of just the heading, what are we calling this again? Consecutive finder. And if I save this h1 element, we'll see if we refresh here, we're building the web page. Okay, awesome. Now, this is an HTML5, right? So we want to write HTML. We want to close HTML at the end of it as well. We want to write a head. And then a body. These are all tags that you just write. This is just HTML5. It makes it so that it works on. Now, to be perfectly honest, I don't understand why you have to do all this, but I'm aware of the fact that you do. And then in here, we're going to write script. This makes it so that we can write JavaScript into the HTML5. We should be able to console.log hello from consecutive finder. I'm adding this as a string. I'm going to add your semicolons in there to be good. If we were to save this now and refresh this page, we would see that if we press Command Alt I and do the go into the console in Google Chrome, you see we have hello from consecutive finder. If we were to change this with an exclamation point and refresh, we would have an exclamation point there. So what we've done now is we've created an HTML page that is rendering this string to the console. Now, obviously, this string is useless for our purposes right now. And what we want to do is create JavaScript that's better than this. Now, I don't like the way my text editor doesn't show colors right here when I do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to list out here. I've got index.html. Instead of embedding the JavaScript directly here, I'm actually going to say I'm going to create a file. With its consecutive finder.js, so it's a JavaScript file. And so if we open with Atom consecutive finder.js, this should pop up here. And so now if we were to say console.log JavaScript file here, well, if we were to refresh this, it doesn't show up yet, right? Why is that? Because we actually need to embed it. So yeah, we need to embed this JavaScript into the index page, because right now the index page is only showing this. We want it to actually say JavaScript file here. And so in order to do that, we need to load the script. And I can't remember how to link JavaScript to HTML page. Including JavaScript in your page. I'm just trying to... Here we go. Yeah, so this is the code. We want to say, we're going to do it like this. I'm just going to copy from simmons.edu, and I'm going to add it here. However, this path is not correct for ours, right? Because we want the source to be the file name of our JavaScript file. And we made it consecutive finder.js. So if I change this .js, now we should see both consoles. We should see both hello from the consecutive finder, because that's here. And then we should also run what's in this folder afterwards. So after hello from consecutive finder, we should run JavaScript file here. And so if I were to refresh the page here, we've got it. Okay. Now, instead of writing my JavaScript in here where, oh, the colors are looking good now. I wonder if I should do it there or if I should do the embedded one. You know, for this tutorial, I actually think it makes sense to just write the JavaScript here. However, I'm going to leave this here just in case we need to use this for something. Let's see, what's the next step? I'm going to kind of start from the perspective of the roulette wheel program that I wrote in Ruby. This is actually functioning. So basically what we want to do is create, we need to be able to say, we need to be able to get a random red or black. It needs to be 50% or 50%. Yeah. And so I'm just going to change this to be down here so that I can actually read the Ruby code as I'm working through. But we want to say, function. This is JavaScript here that I'm writing, but this is Ruby up here. Function random red or black. You'll see JavaScript's written camel case for the functions, and Ruby's written in snake case. And that, it's not super required. You could do snake case in JavaScript, but that's not how you're supposed to do it. You should do it this way. It doesn't need a parameter. In JavaScript, you write the brackets, whereas in Ruby, you don't have to do that. And then, well, what we want to do, let's see, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to console.log the results of random red or black, right? And so this would be, if we return red or black result will go here. And now if I press Command I on Ruby, because I've got this set up, you can see that it says that what we're doing is calling this function, and inside of this function, we're just returning this string. And this is the result here. We can actually comment this out by putting 2 slashes. If we were to run this Command I, this is just the Command I is a tool that I have in Ruby or in the Atom text editor. But if you wanted to run this without the text editor, you could just list in here and you can say node consecutive finder. And then you'll get the results from here. So I'm doing Command I just for the purposes of being fast, but you could always just node consecutive finder. If we were to make this an exclamation point and save the file, and then we were to run node consecutive finder, we'll have the exclamation point. So that shows that we can run this in the terminal or in here. For this, I'm just going to run it here because it's faster. So what we want to do is, instead of returning this red or black will go here, we want to say, we need to first off generate a random number, right? So math.random. Okay, cool. So when I run math.random, it gives me a random number in between 0 and 1, but not including 1. It'll never return 1. It'll return 0.99999 at the highest, or it'll return 0. So this isn't actually very helpful, right? Because we need to find out, we need a 50-50 result. So if we multiply that times 10 and we run this program, well, then we've got a 4. What we can do is we can say math.floor, which will round our number down. In this example, it would be 4. If we round the number down, we've got a integer. Now, if we run this a bunch of times, we're going to see 5, 7, 5, 3, 2, 2, 1, 0, 8. Yeah, so now here we're going to get a number in between 0 and 9. Now, let's say we were to make this, how do we get 50%? Modelo. We need to make this +1, which will make it so that we'll either get +1, which makes it so we're either going to get anything from 1 to 10. With 1 to 10, our results are, if we do a modulo, meaning we find the remainder, if the modulo 2 is equal to 0, this should return us either true or false randomly. Cool. So right now, this is basically how to generate random true or false. And so what we want to do is we want to say this is called, we're going to create a variable called random result. And we're going to set that equal to this. Now, if we were to return the random result, our console log is going to return either true or black randomly. True, true, false, true, 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 false. So this is returning a random result of either red or black. Okay, but what we want is not random red or black. We want to return either a string called red and black. So we want to say if the random result is equal to true. Back in Ruby land, we've got to put this in parentheses and then there. Then we return the string of red. Else we return black. And now, if we actually don't need to return the result anymore here. If we were to run this, we get black, black, red, red, black, 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 red. Okay, so now we're getting a random result based on this. This is kind of the idea. The idea was proposed to me by my friend who wanted to think about consecutive results in Roulette. And then there's a way that he thinks that you might be able to game the system if you have an idea for how many consecutive reds you get. So that's what we're going to do. We're talking about it's kind of just a fun project of thinking about statistics. So what do we do? What happens? We've got a result. Every time that we call this function random red or black, we get a result that's either red or black. Now, we want to be able to do this multiple times, right? And so what we want to do is have roulette wheel results. Oh, you can see I actually made a mistake up here. This is in JavaScript. So I'm actually going to just change this because I like to keep, whenever I see errors, I like to fix them as well as possible. So roulette wheel, I want to change that in this Ruby program to be roulette wheel like this. So you can see I set the function here and then we're calling it here, and that's creating this thing. So I'm going to just change those both with roulette wheel and make it a snake case the way it's supposed to be, because in Ruby you use snake case, and in JavaScript you use what's called camel case, where you just lowercase the first word and then uppercase all consecutive words after that. Okay, so now what we've got is we can generate a random number. So now what we're going to do is write a function to where we can say do it 5 times, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to make this one called the roulette wheel results. And inside of this function, we're going to say, oh, here we go. Look at this, another mistake. Okay, roulette results. Here we want to define the variable. We make the roulette wheel results equal to an empty array. An array is just think about it of like, it's like a collection of buckets. And in there, here right now, there's 0 buckets. And you can put things in there like things in there like 1, 2, 3. And then you'll have 3 buckets. The first one has a number 1 in it. The second one has a number 2. And the third one has a number 3. And what we're going to do is we want to say number of roulette wheel spins. So this is the number of times that we spin the roulette wheel. So we want to say number of roulette wheel spins, which is a number. How do you do this in JavaScript? I forget. 4 times do. Oh, we read a for loop. Okay, so for, we want I is equal to 0. We want to let I equal to 0. While I is less than the number of roulette wheel spins, we keep going, and then we iterate I with each one. So that means we add to 1. What does this mean? This is a for loop, which means that if the number is 2, we're going to say index is equal to 0. This needs to be actually -1. We set I to 0, while I is less than the number of wheel spins, so it's 2. So that would be 2 minus 1. So while 0 is less than 1, we run this code, and then we increment I on each one. And then so the next time it comes around, I is equal to 1, because it's gone through the loop, so it's iterated once. So I is less than 2 minus 1, 1. Less than 1. Yeah, and so I'm just going to run this to get the idea. And then what we want to do is we want to add in the result of a random red or black. So we want to say our roulette results, and we're going to push onto them the what we're going to do is push on this random red or black. So we're going to push on the results of the random red or black. Actually, we could set this just to make this a bit more explicit, so it's easier for people that are new to programming to understand. We can say the random result is equal to random black or red. And then I'm just going to console log this random result. Okay, and so now what we want to do is we want to get the roulette wheel results, and we need to pass into this function a number. I'm going to do 5 to start with. So what we're doing now, for 5 times, we're going to come in and add either a string of a red or a black to here. So we want a result of 5 strings here. So I'm going to press Command I to run it. Awesome. It's coming out. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 results. I think if we do type of, we can ensure that we're getting, this should say an array. Oh, okay. So this I at 0. Oh, okay. So what's happening is I'm pushing onto the roulette results, but we're not returning them at the bottom. We want to return the roulette results. That's why we were getting undefined here, because the function wasn't actually returning anything. Cool. So now we've got a collection of 4. Now, that's not what we want. We want 5, right? So I think that me reducing 1 off the index was unimportant. So we're going to run it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. Okay, so what's happening here is we're saying 5 here, and we're saying while the index is less than the number of 5, we're doing that. With each one, I'm console logging out the result. So black, red, black, black, black. And we want to not do that because we don't need any more. This is just a tool for me to figure out what's going on here. So the random result, we set that here. This becomes a string of either red or black as soon as this runs, because this runs through this function. And then we're printing it here, and then we're adding it here. We don't need to print it anymore, so I'm going to remove the console log line, and I'm saving the file. So now what we have is a function. If I run this again, you'll see it just gives us 5 random results. And if we wanted to do that with 10, we could do that. And what's going on? Why would it do that? 1, 2. Oh, I get it. It's just formatting it for me. If we were to do that over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so we're just getting an array of strings that say the result in either black or red randomly generated. If I were to run it again, you'll see that it's just completely random. And that's what we're looking for. So this is successful. Now, the next thing we want to do is find out the number of consecutives. So for here, it goes red, black, red, red, black, black, red, 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 black. So the result of this one, we want the computer to find it, that these are the 3 most consecutive results. I'm actually going to do it with 5 because it makes it easier to read. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The result here would be 2, and it would either be black or red. I don't think we should care whether or not. Black, red, black, red, black. In this example, we would want the answer to be 1 because the most consecutive result is only 1. In this example, we would want it to be 2 because the most consecutive result is 2. And in here, we would want it to be 3 because the most consecutive is 3. Okay, so what we want to do is, like I said, I've written this in Ruby up here. And so you can see that this is the most most common repetitive results. And then inside of here, what we do is we pass in the array, which is this guy. So we pass this result into this function. And so, yeah, I'm just going to get started. First off, I'm going to set the roulette wheel results equal to a variable. And then this is going to be roulette wheel spins. We're going to set that equal to roulette wheel results, and then your console logging the roulette wheel spins. And why am I doing this? Just so that we can have a very simple variable, and I'm actually going to, pressing up. Oh, I got a syntax error. An extra thing. Cool. So now when we run this, we'll be able to see the array that we generated, the random array. And so with that, we would know that we want 3 reds. We want a result of 3, meaning the number of consecutive results. And then we also want to know the color that it was, even though that's not super important. And so that's what we're going to do. The roulette results are there. So the next step is we're going to find the most competitive array. So we're going to write a function, and it's going to be called most common repetitive result. And this is a function. JavaScript functions we write like this with the brackets and the parameters. Inside of the parameter, we want to toss in the roulette wheel spins. That's equal to the 5 of the things here. Now, if we were to say console.log, now theoretically what we want is, we want the result, and we want to return the well, basically, like for example, here we would want it to say 3 and then red. And so if I were to console log this guy, I'm saving the file here, and then I'm pressing Command I just to run it in here. Oh, I have syntax error in my console log. I need to have it in brackets. You're console logging this function with this parameter inside of it. And this is wrapped in those parentheses, and these parentheses are wrap that guy. So Command I, 3 in red. Now obviously this is just going to return 3 in red all the time, even though it's wrong. It should be 2 in black in this example, right? We want it to be black and 2 because red is the most common consecutive result is 1 here, then it's 1 with black, and then it's 1 again, and then it's black, and it's 1 again, and then black happens again, and so it becomes 2. And so this is wrong. So we need to write a function that instead of just returning 3 in red all the time, it returns the results. So let's say we're going to start off, what we need is a count, a consecutive, we're going to say variable consecutive count is equal, and we're going to set that equal to 0 initially. And then we also want a variable for storing whatever the highest number that consecutive count ever reaches. So we're going to say variable the maximum consecutive count. Now, why do I give these giant, you could actually just make this like CC and then, or whatever, right? CC, and this could be MCC. And some people write programs like this and they become incredibly difficult to understand. It doesn't make sense to me. I think that you should write explicit variable names so that way when you're thinking about it and it gets complex later on in your program, it's easier to understand what's going on. And then we're going to make the most common color. And so whenever we store the most consecutive results, we'll store the most common color as well. And that will make it so that we know if it was 6 reds or 6 blacks or whatever. Now the first thing we want to do is iterate through here. So we're going to use another for loop, just like we did before. In JavaScript, to write for loops, you write for the variable. We're going to let I equal 0. I is less than the roulette wheel spins dot length. Why roulette wheel spins dot length? Well, in this example, the length of this roulette wheel is 5. And so we want to iterate through 5 times. And then we want I to be plus equals 1. Okay, cool. So that makes it so that we're going to console log and we're going to actually go through each of the things. So here we could say if, okay, the result, okay, and so what we want to do in here, we're going to set a variable that's equal to, so that we can pull each one of these out. Because basically what this is going to do is go through and it's going to hit each of these strings. One, it's going to go through here, and it's going to do stuff based on that. So we're going to say the variable of the result of roulette spin is equal to the roulette wheel spins at position I. And now if we were to console.log the result of roulette spin, this is going to print out 5 times whatever the result is. And first off, we need to say, okay, most competitive results, and we're passing in 5 times. And so now I'm going to actually remove this because we don't need this dummy result thing. And we're just going to see if we iterate through. What I want this to do is basically print out each of these individually. And so I'm going to press Command S and then come over here and node consecutive finder. Cool, it's doing it. It's rendering out. It's going red, black, red, black, red, black. Now, this isn't necessarily telling us what we want, because what we want to do is say, if the past value was the same as the immediate value, meaning like if red is equal to red and black is equal, then we count this. So here, our most consecutive count would be 1, and it would be equal to red. And then the second one, because it's 1, we're starting again black. Our result is black, and so we want to set the the maximum consecutive count back to, we want to set the maximum consecutive count back to 0. So we set it to 0 here, here, and then here, but then we don't set it to 0 here. So we want to say we need the result, and then we also want a past result of roulette spin. And that is going to be equal to the roulette wheel spins at I minus 1. Now, this is going to be a problem because if we do this on the initial value, this will be, I is going to be equal to 0. If we say -1, we're going to say -1, and that's going to be a problem. So we only want to set this if I is greater than 0. So we're going to write an if statement. If I is greater than 0, if I is greater than 0, we can use this, and we can set the past result roulette spin. This actually needs to be defined out here, and then we don't need to redefine the variable later. And for here, you can actually just leave it like that. You can define it without actually giving it a style. And then, and if it's not, so if I is not greater than 0, meaning when I is 0, we're going to say the past roulette spin, we're going to set that equal to the result of the roulette spin, meaning if it's red, it's red. And that just makes it so we start off on red. Yes. As you can see in my Ruby code, I did it differently. I just said if the index is equal to 0, then we set it to 0. Else, we treat it as if it's greater than 0. You can do it either way, doesn't matter. I actually think this way is more intelligent, but this works too. It should work. Yeah, I'm just going to save this, and then I'm going to run this program again, see if we're still getting it. Awesome, we're still getting the results. Red, red, red. There's no syntax errors. So now our next thing is we want to set a conditional statement to say, to figure out whether or not we have the result. So with this recent one, we're going to say, okay, red. And our most common consecutive result is 1, and the color is red. The second one, because it is red, if this is equal to this, then we know we can count 1 up, meaning we can say, we can make the most common consecutive result 2, and then the color stays red. And then on the third one, because it's not the same as the past result, that's when we stop, and we set this to 0, the most common consecutive result to 0, and the color is black, and then we do it again. So we get 2 again, and so this time, I think that it would stay on red because we wouldn't write it here. But anyways, that's what we're trying to do. We're going to compare the past result. So we want to say if the past result of the roulette spin is equal to black, and the result of roulette spin is equal to black, then our consecutive count is plus equals 1. What does that mean? That means we add 1 to it, so it goes from 0 to 1. Now, else if this is an else if statement, so this will happen based upon a new conditional degree that we're setting here, and we're saying else if the past result and the immediate result is equal to red, then we're going to say consecutive count is equal to plus equals 1. Now this handles it. This would give us a result based on our counter would be counting the red and black continuously, but then at the same time, it doesn't ever reset. So we need to have a rules for when it is supposed to go back to 0. And that is a condition in which if you're at this point and you move to this one, then the past result doesn't equal the immediate result, and therefore you start at 0. And so we want to set the consecutive account based on that idea. So if you're and I'm just going to keep copying and pasting this, even though this isn't the best way to code. It'd be better to write this more efficiently. If the past result is equal to black and the immediate result is equal to red, what we want to do is set the consecutive count equal to 1, which means we start from the beginning. So once we get to here, our consecutive result is 1 because black's already happened. Now we just do the same thing, and I'm already seeing a way that we could make this more intelligent, but I'm just going to continuously write it out like this verbosely so that it's easier to understand. And then we just switch these. Now, I see a way to do this in 2 lines already, but I'm just going to continue to do it this way. So if we come to here and we've got a consecutive count of 2 for the blacks, and then we move on to the next one and we say, is red equal to black? It's not. And then therefore we start again with the consecutive count being equal to red here. So again, we want to set the consecutive count is equal to the first, is equal to 1. So we start from the beginning again. Okay, cool. So now we have the basic consecutive counts. If we were to run this, if we were to log the consecutive counts, we might be able to get an idea for whether or not our function is operating efficiently. Okay, it looks like we have a JavaScript error on line 47. So if I come here, I see else if there, red, black. Look at that. Okay, so there's a double parenthesis, which is causing us issues. And so if I run it now. Okay, so this is actually showing that it's working. Our consecutive count is being printed out with each iteration. Our consecutive count here is 1, and consecutive count is here 3, 3, and then here it's 4. And then on our last one, our consecutive count becomes equal to 1. However, we're still returning undefined, right? Why is that? Well, what's happening is we're not returning the value. If we were to return this consecutive count here and run this program, we would see that the consecutive count became 2, but it only returned it at the end. What we're trying to do is find the max consecutive result. And so that way, the way that we're going to store this is we're going to say the maximum consecutive count and the most common color. We want to set these 2 variables down here. How are we going to do that? If the consecutive count is greater than, if the consecutive count, meaning the one that we're counting on, is greater than the most consecutive count, and initially this is going to be 0, so this is going to happen immediately on the first iteration, then we want to set the most, I want to just copy and paste it. We want to set the most common color is equal to the result of the roulette spin. So that would be, if it's the first value is red, then this becomes equal to red. And then we also want to set the maximum consecutive count, which we're comparing here, because this will make it so that if we get to 2, if this is in a row, right? First off, the maximum consecutive count is set to 1, and then here it's set to 1 as well. But then here it becomes set to 2 because when it comes down here, our consecutive count is greater than the maximum consecutive count because it was 1 back here, but now that we have a 2, this becomes the result. So our maximum consecutive count becomes equal to the consecutive count. And then we should be storing that properly. And now actually I think that we can actually just return an array of the maximum consecutive count with the most common color. And this should actually give us the right answer, I think. Okay, so this right now it's saying 3 because the most consecutive is these 3 reds, and the result is red. 2, and it's black. Here we've got blacks happening twice, so they're black. And here we have the consecutive finder being 3 for black, 1, 2, 3. And so, yes, now we're generating a 50-50 spin for red and black. And we're counting the number of times that a consecutive result happens, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the color that the result is. And so there you go. We've written the JavaScript. And so now in our window over here, we can use the results of this JavaScript, and we can basically find out the results from doing that. Okay, so let's see. I want to change this. I want to run this down here because this is where we generate the roulette spins. So here we can set the number of spins. We actually don't need to console log. We should still console log the spins for right now for development purposes. But if we wanted to adjust the number of results we're testing, we can just change the roulette wheel spins number to 10. And that would make it so we should have 10 here. And now our most common was 4 blacks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then red, red, black, red, black, black. So the answer is 4 blacks. And so obviously now we can do it, if we were to do it with 100, I press Command K to clear the console. With 100, we've got the most consecutive is 6, 4, 8, 5, 6. And this is what's kind of interesting. This is what my buddy wanted to be able to do. With 1,000, 12. And I'm going to actually console out the spins because now it becomes too big for me to check 900 more items, right? So with 1,000, the most consecutive results was 12, and it was black, 9 black, 9 black, 12 red, 10. Isn't that interesting? Throughout all those times, the most common consecutive result was 12, and the least common was 9, which means that with 1,000 rolls, if you're on a straight of more than 9, you're really close to not working anymore. And the cool thing about this is you could make this 10 million. The problem with making it 10 million is that it's just going to take a long time for my computer to run. At 10,000, let's see if it slows the computer down. Okay, 10,000 is no big deal for my computer. 100,000, still no big deal. 1 million, no big deal, but it started to slow down. At 10 million, yeah, now it's getting slow, and I'll bet you at 100 million it gets real slow. And so that's the idea. This is actually it's just running the program so many times. We're just waiting for it to be done. So 27 was that number. So yeah, this was at 10 million. Yeah, I'm actually going to extract this out. I'm going to say number of roulette spins desired. And I'm going to say variable the number of roulette spins desired. And we're going to set that equal to, well, now I'm going to set it back down to 5. So we get the idea. And this just makes it so that I can also console.log the number of roulette spins desired. And I'm going to add a string of desired spins. Now if we run that, we did desired spins of 5, so we did 5 spins. The most common one was 1 red. And so now we're getting kind of a program where it just spits out. This is what happened. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There was 4 blacks in a row, and therefore we got 4 in black, and the desired spins was 5. And so there you go. This is the JavaScript portion of this tiny little one-page web application. Now, it's great that we can, we can, if you see, I've saved this file, consecutive finder JS is actually running here. So if we were to refresh this, we're actually getting in the console the results of this, of the code. I mean, we're console logging this out. And so, actually in the console, if we wanted the roulette wheel spins, you can see that we're actually getting the array here. And so theoretically we can, therefore we know that we've got this loaded into the browser. Now, so what we want to do is say maybe we need to create a front end interface, right? We need to write HTML, which gives us a form where we can interact with the console. And so to do that, we're going to go back to our index page. And let's say, well, first off, we want to put some sort of a box. We want a button, really. Yeah. I think you can just do that. And then just like get results. Let's make it funny. Results, please. Okay, so does this give me a button? Results, please. Got it. Okay, I've got a button. I think that we can go on click, and then we can actually call a function. Now, I'm not sure, but I think if, let's see this. Looks like that doesn't have an on click. Anyways, I want to write a function in here, a JavaScript function, right? So something that does like, what do we want the JavaScript to do? We want it to handle a results request. Now, all these variables, I'm always just making these up. This is not something that like I remembered from the JavaScript API. There's probably something better to do here. I'm just doing this. I give them like long names to give us an idea for exactly what they do. So we're going to console log, and we're just going to say, you've requested a JavaScript function. Now, the reason I'm doing this, even though this is obviously a dumb function, if I do this in the on click button, so on the click, we go handle a results request, and theoretically, that is going to feed in, and in the console, we'll say you've requested a JavaScript function. So I'm going to save the index, I'm saving the JavaScript file, and then I'm refreshing this page. And we've got a syntax error on line 55. Handle a results request. Result. Unexpected token. Console.log. Oh, I say variable. It needs to be function. Okay, so now we can click this, and we're actually running a JavaScript function. So if we were to click that and say the most competitive results in this, so right now what happens when we click this button, we're running this function. And if we were to run the most competitive results, and then we say 5, that will actually run our most competitive results with roulette wheel spins of, well, let's make it 3, because right now we have it 5 here. So when we click the button, we should get a different result. Whereas we're getting 5 here, we should get 3. Now I save this. This is really important. You have to refresh the browser. So I press Command R to refresh it. And so now if I go results, please. What's happening here is it's just rendering, but it's not saying anything. We need to console log it in order for us to see what's going on. I save this, and now if I refresh the page here, cool, now I'm getting the results. Competitive results, 3. Oh, the problem is I'm passing in an integer rather than the number of roulette wheels spins. So we actually need to do the roulette wheel spins needs to be within here, and the number of desired spins needs to be 3. So I save this and then I refresh this page. Okay, cool. So in that one with the 3, there was 2 blacks in a row. And there we go. Now we're console logging it, but how do we make it so that the JavaScript prints things to the actual web page, right? For here, we can use a div, and we say ID is equal to roulette wheel results area. Again, I'm just making this up. And then in here we could say click the results button for your math. Okay, so now in here we have a div with an ID. Now, if we want to control this div with JavaScript, we need to say document.get element by ID, and then the class name is roulette wheel results area. And we want to set this equal to results area. Now, on the click, we want to say document.inner HTML is equal to, we want to make it a string, and in that string we're going to concatenate into the thing. In JavaScript, you need to write the small quote on the top left of your keyboard in order to concatenate strings like this. We want to make that equal to the result of our function. And now I'm not exactly sure if this is going to work because I'm doing this off memory. So I'm just going to run, saved it here. We've got the ID here, and so, excuse me. I'm also going to comment these console logs out because I want the console to be clean. What I want to happen, I'm saving it here and I'm refreshing here. Cool, we've got a syntax error on line 60. And then I'm refreshing it. Hello from consecutive finder. I'm going to comment that out as well. We don't need that. I'm refreshing. We're missing a thing. So right now what I want to look up, I might be just writing this document wrong. I want to say HTML add inner HTML. Append or prepend an element. Document dot. Oh no. Okay, so here's what we need to say in our results area. Dot inner HTML. We want that to be equal to there. Now, I think that might have been our problem. So I'm gonna. I saved this down here, and now I'm gonna refresh. Same error. Interesting. Results area. I wonder what would happen if we just passed this in instead of trying to pass in a string. And so right now I don't know where my errors are coming from. I'm actually going to put this back. So I'm just going to comment this out. And if I refresh, I can see because the error didn't happen, I know it's one of these two lines. So I'm going to re-comment this line in. I'm going to refresh. Cool. So the results area is not the problem. And if I actually type in results area to here, Results area is not defined. Oh, why is that? Because it hasn't been clicked. Yeah, okay, cool. So I want to make the results area of a global scoped variable. And now I'm going to refresh this. Cool. And if we type in results area, we get null. It shouldn't be. So we're not getting the roulette spin area. We want to get element by ID. So right now I'm just using the console REPL in order to find the HTML element I'm looking for. So document dot get element by ID. I want to do the roulette wheel spins. Okay, so it is running here. Okay, I realize what's going on here. The for some reason, window.onload, we want to say a function which is like roulette process. And then in here, we're going to say the function. What we need to do is wait for the window to load. This is something I honestly don't really understand entirely. I think basically you want to get all your JavaScript to load once the window's up. Otherwise, it runs like at the same time that your HTML is processing. So you actually want to wait for it to happen. So now the results, please. Handle a results request is not defined. Handle a results request is not defined. This actually might not be important. Rethink this. If I refresh the page and hit the results, you've requested a JavaScript function. So we're console logging that properly. And what we want to do is say the results area. Let's say we console.log the results area. If I refresh this, interesting. Why does it not like that? Does it not like that? Maybe I define it here. No, I want to define it outside of the function. $62. What if I were to document? Interesting. Okay, so it's working now. So basically what I should do is set this in here and then console log the results area. Now this should give me, cool. And then the results area dot inner HTML. We want to, well, let me see if I can just say area. Awesome. So what's going on is I'm just writing this in inaccurately. So I'm going to try to make it easier. I'm going to add this. Oh, I see what was going on. This needs an extra parenthesis right there. 2 and red. Awesome. So now when we click this button, we're rendering out 5 times, even though I've set this explicitly, so it's always going to do 5. And we're getting the results. Yeah, so this is random consecutive results for 2 and 3. Now, this is fine. I'm actually going to get rid of all this commented out code. Sorry I took you on a random one, but I told you this video was going to be imperfect. I'm just testing out this idea of doing kind of a big project. Let me know if you think that this is something that's worth my time to do. So anyways, now we're getting the results here, but the problem is we're only getting the number of roulette spins desired. Where are we setting the number? Here, handling the request, we're setting it so it's 3. So if we make this one 10, we'd start getting more results. We could say we did. Well, first off, we should just say we should set a variable equal to the number of spins. And we'll set that equal to, well, let's set it equal to 10 for now. So we want our number of spins. So here we're going to say we spun the wheel, and we're going to say number of spins. Oops. And we're going to say times. And then we're going to close out that parenthesis and then start a new one so that we get a new line. And all our results were, and then we're adding the results. And the number of spins is equal to 10, so I want to make this the number of spins. And I save this, and if I refresh this page, we should say we spun the wheel 10 times. I notice that there we need a space here and here because 10 has no spaces. The results were the most competitive consecutive result was. So I want to extract this variable as well and say results at 0. And why is that? I'm going to save this as a variable results. So I'm setting the results equal to the result, which is the 4 in red. And so if I do results of 0 or 1, then was red. And so I'm saying the most consecutive results was red, which occurred results 0 and then times. Okay, so if I save this and we do the results, we spun the wheel 10 times. The most consecutive result was red, which occurred 10 times. I don't need to say a colon here. And then we can refresh this, and now we're getting 10 times. We get red for 4, black for 4, black for 4, red for 4. If we change the number of spins to 100, then results 6. You see we're getting greater results. And then we could actually add another P statement in here, which says oh wait, no, we don't need that. Here, instead of saying we spun the wheel 10 times. Okay, yeah. Number of spins. This should now say we spun the wheel 100 times. We spun the wheel 10 times. We spun the wheel, number of spins, which should be 100. Okay, so I'm going to save this and refresh this page. Okay, we spun the wheel 100 times. The most consecutive result was red, which occurred 8 times. 5, 10. So yeah, we're just getting random results for spinning it 100 times. Now, one thing that we want to be able to do is change the number of spins, and so that we get so that we can select this using an input box here. I want a little box here. So what I'm going to do, I've got to come over here and go some kind of input, right? And if I save this and I refresh here, cool. So now I've got that. Okay, so now I'm going to come over. I want to Google how to save user input HTML. This initial one, the guy's asking a question here. And here he gives him basically the answer. So I'm just going to take this code and bring it over to my page. And I'm just going to paste it in here. Now I need to format it. This needs to be in HTML. This inline styling is unimportant. So I'm just removing the style. Type submit on click other name. So the on click is going to do this function. So I'm going to take the other name function and I'm going to throw it into my JavaScript down here. So what's happening here is index. If we refresh this page, oh, I have to save my index file. If I refresh this page, okay, now I've got a new, this is the box, the input box for user input. And then on click, we're running this other name function. Now we've got the input. Now, so if I do this, if I say this is 10 and I click submit, this page says 10. What does that mean? That means that in this other name function, we've set the input by going document.getElement by ID, user input. User input is here. The ID is set here. And then the value. So our value is input. And so now we should be able to do what we were doing in this function. Turn false. Interesting. So instead of the roulette wheels, please. Okay, so what you could do, handle a results request by the number of spins desired. And what we could do, because the input is going to be the number of spins desired, we can say, after we set the input on the click, we can feed into there the input, which is equal to the number that was selected. And then we're going to run through here, the number of spins desired is set there instead of 100. So if we refresh the page and we request 10, we spun the wheel 10 times, the most consecutive result occurred to 100. We did it 100 times, 1,000. The red, which occurred 12 times, 10,000. We spun the wheel 10,000 times. The most consecutive result was red. And what we can do is get rid of this old button because it's no longer useful. And we don't need this input either because we just copied the one off the internet. And so click the results button first. So if we did 10, we spun the wheel 10 times. The most consecutive result was black, which occurred 5 times. And 100. Now we can do 33. Really? 33, 4 times. That's crazy. 300, 10 times. And so yeah, now you've got a consecutive finder. You can say, this is like a roulette wheel thing. One thing I don't like about this function or this program right now is it doesn't tell people what's happening. If they were to come to this application and this was what it was, they'd be like, I don't even know what this is. I have zero idea why this would be any useful thing. So I'm going to add a paragraph text here. And in it, I'm going to say, this tool generates this tool can generate as many roulette wheel spins as you desire. It is designed to tell you how many consecutive results occur in that a batch of roulette spins. For example, if you played 5 roulette spins on red, if you played 5 roulette spins and the results were black, black, we don't actually need them. Red, 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 black. Black, red, 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 and black. You would have had 3 consecutive red spins. You would have had a maximum consecutive red results of 3. Enjoy. Okay, cool. And if I come over here, this now describes what's going on here. Above the form, I might want to say something like input your desired spin count here. Okay, cool. And then when we enter our amount and we submit the form, we get the results. Another thing I want to do here is like, I want to say, and then I'm going to make this emphasized, be careful because huge numbers can be a problem for your browser. It could crash if you go nuts. And that would mean you would lose data and stuff like that. This is a very, very fundamental tool, and so it's kind of inherently dangerous. If I were to do, what was it? That's 100,000. It happens pretty quickly. 1 million, 10 million. Now you see it just going slow. 100 million, it's going to take a long time. I'm going to run it now, but I don't really want to. Notice it hasn't changed. We did it 1 million. We spun the wheel 1 million times. It was 24. This is still the old results. We're waiting because now instead of doing 1 million, we're doing that 10 times. So there we go. 26 times. So if you were to keep going up, this could actually make your browser just stop working. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. This is how to write that function, and we made it so it's a web browser. So now anybody who has any questions about that can just actually just go to this page and type in numbers. And if they wanted to see how many times it would happen, if they were trying to get a understanding of the statistics behind consecutive roulette wheel spins, this would be a useful tool. Okay, and so now this is only running locally. So if somebody wanted to do this tool, you would have to email them the file, right? If we were to look in the Finder, the roulette wheel, oh, that's the RB file. This is consecutive Finder. This is the name of the project, right? We've got our JavaScript here, and we've got our index file here. Now, this isn't especially useful because you'd have to send someone this, and then they'd have to open it up with their browser. We want to make it available on the internet, right? So one thing that we can do is use GitHub. So git status, pwd. You see I'm in consecutive Finder. So what I want to do is git init, which will initialize an empty Git repository, and git status. If I do git status, you'll see that there's 2 files that aren't committed to Git. So I want to go git add, and then git commit -m, meaning add a message to it. And what we're going to do is say, initialize working roulette wheel consecutive count project. Git push, and it's going to say, well, we can't push, we don't know where it is. So what we want to do now is we're going to go to GitHub and log in. Now I know there's a good chance that you don't have these tools and this kind of stuff. Setting all this up can be a bit tricky, but I'm not going to go into that for this scope of this one. I'm going to go to my profile, and I'm going to go to repositories, and I'm going to create a new repository. And I actually liked the way I worded it just then. Roulette wheel consecutive count project. Cool, that's good. A consecutive count project for huge amounts of roulette wheel spins. So we create the repository. So now I've created a GitHub repository. What we want to do is push an existing repository. So I'm just going to go straight up, copy and paste this. This sets the remote. So now I've added it to here, and then push it to master. Cool. And now we've pushed it to master. And if we refresh this page, it will actually have the project here. So now that I've added it to GitHub, I can go settings. I think it's pages. Yeah, we can go master branch, set the master branch. And so now if you go here, GitHub Pages actually makes it really super easy for us. Page. I think you have to go maybe index. Oh yeah, this just takes some time to load up sometimes. Your site is ready to be published. Yeah. Okay, cool. So now it's on the internet. Yeah, see, it just takes a second to publish sometimes with that. Yeah, so we do 10. Spin the wheel 10 times. 100, 100 times. 1,000 times. And we get 12 results. I could keep going with this. We could make this really cool. We could make a little graphic that actually spins the wheel and goes really fast. I can make a YouTube video about this tutorial. I'm actually just going to embed this YouTube video underneath here. So when you watch this, you should be able to see a video on how this was made just below here. I'm not going to do that right now because I have to upload the video before I can code that in. But that would just mean that I would come over to the HTML and add a enclosure YouTube tag thing to this code. And that's pretty easy. Yeah, good to go. Okay, so this is live. You should be able to actually visit this URL if you're watching this video to see this. I'll add this YouTube video at this URL, but I'll also add a link to the GitHub project so you can copy the code down. And that's it for this one. This was a very long video, so I'd love to hear what you guys thought about it. If you found this useful, I think this is great from going from fundamentals of programming all the way up to having something that actually programmatically works. So I hope this was useful, and we'll see you in the next lesson.